Okay, welcome everyone to a very chill tournament recap session. Basically, just want to go over what the trip was like. I just came back from Italy. I was in Italy to play in one of the coolest Magic events that I play in at all. This is probably it's actually like my first big Magic event in maybe 3 years. With the virus and everything that happened, I haven't really gotten to travel, and there haven't been a lot of large events. So this is probably the first time I've traveled internationally in a while, and the first time I played in a Magic tournament in a while. And so I went to 4Seasons in Italy, in Bologna, which is absolutely something I recommend anyone who can do to do. It is it's the perfect blend of a competitive tournament and a celebration of community. The thing it reminds me a lot of from the States are the Mandarin Opens, the Waterbury Opens. It is more, I would say, more competitive than a Waterbury Open, but it has a lot of the same feelings of community and feelings of celebration of being together and playing Magic. And I think I'm just gonna take this time. And I don't really want to play any Magic tonight. I just want to talk about the weekend and vintage and the meta and everything that happened. So you're in Bologna, and the event venue is at a community center. It's for Americans, it's kind of a blend between like I don't know, maybe a YMCA and a VFW hall. I don't know if that's a good description, but that's what I kind of think about it. It's this big area, big building. It's got a bunch of rooms in it. It has a little cafe. It has a little kitchen. It has these big halls where you can play Magic, and there's tons of dealers. And this was the biggest 4Seasons ever. Modern main event had around 500 players. Legacy main event had 480 players. We had team trios with 60 teams, and we had vintage with 64 players, which I think are all absolutely astounding numbers. And I'm just super happy that we get to play, large tournament Magic again. So first tournament day is Friday. They have team trios on Friday, and team trios is modern, legacy, and vintage. And because vintage is involved, they actually just let anyone use any amount of proxies for any of the three formats, which I think is really, really cool. It just lets people play the decks that they want to play. I saw some nice, full proxy modern decks, across from, people playing, full foil modern decks. We saw full proxy vintage decks across from Joe, who playing his, alpha and beta power, or alpha power and beta lands, maybe something similar to that. So it was a really a pretty fun mix of cards there. And so with 60 teams, we played 6 rounds of Swiss, and my team was really, really awesome. I feel very lucky to have some internet clout these days. And basically, I just put out a post on the Grinders Discord and on Twitter, and I was like, I really want to play this Team Trios event. Who's gonna be there? Who wants to play? And I ended up with just an absolutely stacked team. I had Niv, Dr. Trunks, who's legacy specialist, and I had Andrea Piemonte, who's Paiganti, who is just like an absurdly good modern player. I think just recently won one of those legacy tour events over in Europe. So I mean, the cool thing, there's 2 cool things about team trios. One is you get to play with your friends, and you get to, it's very like a social and fun experience to play with friends. And 2, from a competitive standpoint, having 3 players, and if all 3 players are very strong, greatly reduces the variance inherent in Magic. So you only need 2 of your 3 players to win. So even if someone has, a bad draw, some mulligans, something happens, you still have your other 2, teammates that you can fall back on. And that worked really, really well for us, because now you can't always win every round. And so let's see, my teammates, Andrea played Blue-Red Murktide in Modern, and Niv played 4-color control with the hamsters in Legacy, and I played this list that you see in front of you for the Vintage seat. And this list is standard Justin 2019 Sagaless Esper PO. The main philosophy behind this list is it is trying to be tailored for more of an open metagame. It is trying to be tailored for people who are doing a variety of things in comparison to the online metagame, which is a little bit narrower. So you're seeing things like I'm playing a main deck Sphinx to really help with stuff like Hogak or Stompy decks or Workshop decks. I think Lavinia is just like super good against a variety of the field right now, so I'm really interested in playing Lavinia. And for the most part, this is actually pretty similar to the deck list that I played in one of my videos. I believe the video is titled I was sick of losing, so I played my best deck. And this is my best deck. Nothing is like super crazy in this list. I'm on some Flusterstorms, but I don't think you want to go overboard on Flusterstorms because I don't actually like having a ton of Flusterstorms against the Tinker Breach style decks. You want 2, 3, but 4 is really reserved for things like PO and Doomsday. There's tons of Saga running around still, and there's always going to be Hate Bears, so Dress Down is just the best way to deal with that from the PO standpoint, where you don't have the main deck removal, but you have a card that cantrips, that gets picked up by PO, that pitches to Force of Will. Obviously, slightly dissynergistic with Lavinia and Sphinx and Mentor and Snap, but it doesn't really come up. You kind of work around it. The third top is just because you're trying to hit Metalcraft as much as possible when you're playing Lavinia. Lavinia is much better when you play it on turn 1, and having an extra artifact to get Metalcraft and be able to cast PO is pretty important. I don't like playing more than one Teferi, though I think more than one Teferi is quite good. If you were playing an Esper Tinker deck, maybe you would play multiple Teferi, but the problem with cards like Teferi and Karn in PO is that once you start adding more of these 3-drops, it gets very clunky very fast. So basically, yeah, we have just a pretty normal Justin Esper PO list. The big upgrade in Esper is that you get to play a beautiful set of balances and swords in the side, to help with Hogak, to help with Mono White, to help with Collector Roof decks. White removal is just so much stronger than black or red removal, and it really shows. I'm playing Hercules for shops, Flusterstorm for blue. Opposition Agent is just the best card you can play as a mirror breaker for Saga Tinker battles. So we're playing Saga Opposition Agents and Karn to that end. Lavinia was coming in anytime it was, relevant, which is most of the time. There are some matchups where Lavinia is not as good, but Lavinia, for the most part, just seems quite great right now. And then, of course, Needles, Crypt, and Tabernacle for Bazaar. I actually made a bit of a misjudgment. So I had some goals for this tournament. One was to just get some reps in with this deck, and 2 was to prepare a deck for Eternal Weekend. And one thing I didn't really consider was the fact that because Vintage in 4Seasons was full proxy, the metagame ended up being extremely close to online instead of being more like a traditional paper metagame. And I just didn't consider that when I was putting this deck out for this event, because I was just like, okay, I want to make a deck that I think I would play at Eternal Weekend. And actually, I probably should have made a deck that would be more similar to a deck I would play in a showcase online, which is really, really weird. But for the most part, like if you make these small concessions for the field, they don't really hurt your main Tinker PO plan against the the online metagame. So it's not like you lost a ton of percentage points, but your deck could be a little more streamlined. So play draw is you all roll for play draw, and if you're in the top 8, then it's still just the whole team is based on your seeding. So for trios, this was what happened. Round 1, I played against an Italian team, and they were on Esper Saga PO. I basically don't remember too much about this match. I think I tinkered early, and my opponent didn't have a force, or it's a PO mirror. It's a lot about who gets to resolve their first powerful spell. And I don't remember it being close, but I think my opponent maybe mulliganed a couple times. I believe Andrea won most of their matches. Like this kid was he just won every match he played basically. And so that made things pretty easy moving through the Swiss. Round 2, I actually played against if you're in the Discord and you ever see Jens Magni 93, I think is the handle. But they are just a extremely competent breach pilot. I don't remember if they won Eternal Weekend Online or Top 8 Eternal Weekend Online. It was one of those two. But very, very good breach pilot. And they were playing a very interesting breach deck. It was not blue-red. It was Grixis. Actually, it was 4-color. I should say it was 4-color. It was like, to use the forbidden word, Xerox style. A cantrip-based breach deck. So it had Dreadhorde Arcanist. It had Gush. It had Mystic Sanctuary. It had Dragon Rage Channeler. So very graveyard-centric, very classic breach deck. You know, something you would actually see in 29, maybe a 2019 Esper PO versus 2019 breach matchup, kind of. It's just an extremely rough matchup for me. A very efficient cantrip-based, pyroblast-based deck. So you really have to play POs on end step. You really need to leverage your non-pyroblastable threats, and that's what really happened in this set. Excuse me. I believe in the last game of this set, I had my Tinker pyroblasted, but I was able to brainstorm into Lotus Citadel and then go Lotus Citadel Karn, all uncounterable, into opposition agents to get the fetch land. So basically, Karn, Citadel, and opposition agent were the keys to winning that matchup because they didn't get pyroblasted. A very strong player, very fun match. But I was really, really happy to able to get that. If you ever see, there's a photo somewhere on the Twitter that's we're trying to resolve a Flusterstorm stack, and that's pretty hard to do online. But it's also really hard to do in paper. So I want to see if I can pull it up really quick. Should be pretty far down on this. I tweeted a lot this weekend, so I'm gonna go try to find it. But it was really funny. Let's see if I can find it. Wait, it's not there. Okay, here it is. So this was my match for round 2, and we took out the sideboard, you know, and we're trying to place Flusterstorm copies. So this is the game I was talking about. See how there's an opposition agent, there's a Citadel, there's a Karn, there's a top, and then so there's a Dragon Rage Channeler getting forced. There's a Fluster on the force. There's a Fluster on the Fluster, and then there's a misstep, and there's also floating mana, or like there's payable mana on each side. So this is just about the most complicated Fluster you could possibly do. It was a little bit of a mess, but it was pretty fun. Then I got to play against Blue-White Saga PO. I think this was Nicolo Covani, one of the casters for the main event. This was a crazy match. This one, game 1, I think we both resolved Ancestral. We both forced like 2 or 3 times each, so we both had no cards left in hand. And then I'm drawing like kind of blanks, and he draws, you know, Tinker Citadel, and with no cards left in hand. And so off the top of the Citadel, cast Merchant Scroll. But in response to Merchant Scroll, my last card in hand was Hurkyl's Recall from the main. So I Hurkyl's the Citadel back to hand, untapped and PO'd and won that game, which was just nuts. Just like actually super crazy. Really fun match. Then round 4, we played against Rodrigo Tagores' team from Spain. And Rodrigo was playing Squee. And oh my god, Squee is... Oh boy, Squee matchup is tough. The good news is for the Squee matchup is we have Lavinia in this version. However, for this particular round, we got just absolutely demolished. It was not close. Just so much power, counter all your stuff. Squee was no good. All right, we could not beat Squee. So this round, actually, these 3 rounds, which I won, Andrea also won, so we were 3-0. And then in this round, I lost. Andrea won, and then Niv tied. Niv did not finish his match at time. So we actually had a team-wide unintentional draw in this round. So after round 4, we're 3-0-1. So we go to the next round and we play against an Italian team from the Wooded team. I think that's what they're called. And I played against Bug, which was an extremely interesting matchup. I got to really utilize the Esper power in that matchup. It's rough because I think my opponent played really well, but I probably played maybe, I don't know. I played a very large number of matches of 2019 Esper PO versus Bug when I played against, when I went to Italy the last time and I played against Joe Brennan a bunch. So I feel really confident about the Bug matchup as a PO player, which is probably not a good sign because, traditionally the Collector Roof Bug deck is pretty good against PO. But with no sagas and the white cards out of the board, I was really happy playing this matchup. And in game 2, I actually won a match where my opponent cast 4 Collector Roof and a Leovold. So my opponent cast 4 Collector Roof and a Leovold, and I won that match. And I just forced the first Collector Roof, swords the second Collector Roof, swords the third Collector Roof, and then he played Oko Leovold. I demonicked for balance to get rid of Leovold and an Elk, and then top decked the 4th Collector Roof, which I was pretty sure was going to kill me. But I actually ended up being able to go, I had 4 mana, and I went Yogwill for swords the Collector Roof, play out my Yogwill, and Tinker, ended up finding Tinker for Sphinx to solidify the match, which was just, it was just a wild game. I think at certain points in that game, I was pretty close to, 5% to win. But I was able to beat this Bug matchup here, which actually ended up putting us at 4-0-1. So we were able to draw in the final round and make it to top 8. In top 8, we played against, certain moderators, certain moderator Log T1's team. And I got to play against Raphael, who was playing the Jeskai Luris deck. I'm gonna give myself the win. I think we can say that I was gonna win that match. So Raphael and I played a 40-minute game 1 maybe, where I had Raphael's swords my mentor, so I didn't have a win condition anymore. And I had to use my Yogwill to survive, so I couldn't do the Bolus Citadel combo. And so I had to go through this crazy Yogwill where I end up at 1 life, just so that I can play a Lavinia to chump block a Ragavan. And then eventually hard cast a Sphinx to win game 1. Obviously, that took 40 minutes, so there wasn't a lot of, the other 2 matches finished. So we were in game 2, and Raphael had mulled to 5, and I was pretty far ahead. We didn't finish that match, though. So we finished that one, 1-0-1. But thankfully, my teammates clutched it, so we won the quarterfinals. So something to talk about is that in the Italian tournaments, at least 4 seasons, Nebraska's, back when it was Nebraska's War 2, Italians like to split the top 8 and go get dinner, which is, I don't mind. I like to win trophies, but I also do like dinner. So, however, in this top 8, Rodrigo's team was also in the top 8, and Rodrigo doesn't split. So, we were, no split in the top 8. And then in the top 4, in the semifinals, we actually played against Rodrigo's team again. And this time, I was actually able to beat Squee. And that was mostly luck. Hey, Rodrigo. Rodrigo mulled to like 3 or 4 in game 1, but actually it was pretty good 3 or 4 because it was still 9 power on turn 1. So it was 9 power on turn 1, but I was able to turn to Tinker for Sphinx. So main deck Sphinx coming in clutch in game 1. I would just barely survive the mull to 3 or 4 from my opponent. And we get there in game 1. And then in game 2, I had just a very strong hand. I ended up with like an early, maybe turn 1 Lavinia. It's like turn 1 or 2 Lavinia into Needle on Bazaar and then Needle on Caracas, so that there was no way to remove the Lavinia, no way to activate the Bazaar and lock out that game. So we actually were able to win here in the semifinals. And then in the finals, we actually were paired up against the... What just broke? Did it just break? What's going on here? The English team? The UK team? Turn 1 Needle, turn 2 Lavinia, turn 4 Needle. Yeah, something... Yes, that sounds right. Who are awesome people. And it was like 10:30 at that point, so we decided that we would split the cash, get some food, and we would play out our match for the trophies the next day. So we did that. We went and got beer and pizza, and we actually played the match on the following day. So the conclusion of that was actually pretty funny. What did we do? So it was like near the end of the day. Sahar and Matt, and then we're playing Sahar was managing the event. I'm sure Matt was playing the European Legacy Masters, which was going on in one of the other halls on the second day. And so after that had gone to top 8, we decided to play out our finals match. But Andrea was still playing in the modern main event, so he said, "Just go and win 2-0." And so we played Jeskai Luris Breach, I should say, versus PO, and 4-color versus Mono White Initiative. And we actually just won 2-0, which was pretty crazy because I think we were on the draw. And I would say both of those matchups are probably unfavored. But we got pretty lucky. I got to cast Tinker or something. And then so Andrea didn't even have to play the modern match out. So we just came back to the hall and gave him a trophy. I was really hoping that he would be playing his modern match and we could just walk up to the match and just drop a trophy. But it didn't happen. So yeah, so we actually got first place in team trios. Pretty fun event. I really like trios. It was a weird trios for me because I don't think I've ever played trios with not people who are like super close friends. Normally, like it's a local event with close friends. A lot of banter, a lot of talking back and forth. But it's my first time meeting these guys, and they're all obviously super nice guys and super powerful wizards. But we were all kind of format experts, and so like I wasn't gonna go tell Nib how to play 4-color control, and I wasn't gonna go. Andrea had probably played 1,000 more modern leagues than I ever have, so. At one point, Andrea was like, what do you think about this play? And I was like, you should do whatever you think is best. I'm liable to tell you the absolute wrong thing here. You're doing great. You're killing it. You probably haven't even lost a match yet. So you do what you think is right. So it was a bit of a weird tournament, but obviously, like I said, team trios like helps reduce the variance. So if you have 3 very strong players, you're gonna have a better, you have a better chance of winning an event than playing a solo event. So. Really happy with my team. Obviously, congrats to the other top 8 teams. And that was super fun. So that was Friday, and then Saturday was Vintage again. And so Vintage on Saturday was 64 players, full proxy, all Vintage. So another 6-round Swiss. And I ran back the same 75. I mean, if you get to the finals, you're pretty likely to run back the same 75. I also didn't bring other cards, so we were pretty locked in on the 75, whether it was good or bad. And then this was my day on Saturday. So started off against Grixis Tinker Breach, which was a pretty close game, but I just feel like the Grixis like Hull Breacher Tinker Breach deck is just super clunky. It has these draws that are disconnected. It has these like 3 drops that are good sometimes, but not always. there's a lot of combos and a lot of cards that don't really have strong synergies together. And even though my opponent is like a Pyroblast deck, I just feel really good about the matchup. I feel like you just have a more concrete game plan. You don't waste any time doing saga things. You find your windows to resolve your powerful spells, and it just feels really good. So that one went pretty well. I think it was still close. Like the matchup isn't like super people favored or anything, but I just don't feel like very bad about the matchup. After that match, I was walking around the tables. I wanted to see what everybody was playing. The guy to the right of me was playing Smelting Vat Shops, which was super cool. I was really happy to see that. He just had a pile like this big because he had gotten the Foundry Inspector top Mystic Forge combo, but his opponent didn't concede, so he was just like throwing cards on the table in this huge pile, and I was like, oh, this is I can't watch. But it was really awesome. And then I also saw, actually, I think it's all over here. If I go scroll up here, so yeah, so here, this was the haul for the Vintage and Legacy Masters tournament. And so this was the Smelting Vat. Look at this board state. Oh my god. We got a Brian Kelly enjoyer over here with the Judge's Familiar Kazali Pride Mage. And then I took a picture of this, which was awesome. So this is an uncounterable Merfolk Tide Shaper killing an Urza Saga, which was you just love to see it. I do say you love to see it, and that is until I had to play against that player in the next round. So Merfolk for PO is an absurdly bad matchup. The opponent's got, I don't even play Saga. That deck is built to beat Saga, but they have 4 Cavern, 4 Hull Breacher, 4 Hex Catcher, 8 Forces. They have Null Rods. It is just an absolute nightmare. And so I got my butt kicked. I do think that part of the reason I got my butt kicked was because I played incorrectly. I actually, like I said to some people, I've already explained this story to some people, but I lost game 3 because I misordered a Sensei's top spin on turn 1. I lost the whole game on one top misorder, which is like really cool. It's a very vintage thing to happen. Basically, like I saw their hand from a probe. It's got a Null Rod on turn 2 and it has Force backup. And so I'm like trying to get my hand to a place where I can beat that. And so I passed the turn, passed back. I've got it all set up. I have, the Ancestral. It's going to resolve because I set it up with a top. And then my opponent drew Fluster for the turn and just ruined the whole plan. But I was thinking, I'm like, oh, it's still fine. I can just draw with top and Time Walk, and then I'll have Force for the Null Rod. But I didn't order the top in the right way. So I didn't have Time Walk on top, and I died. So it was a pretty fun match versus Merfolk, but it was a pretty brutal match. Actually, game 1 of that matchup, I had a mentor, and I won by playing Ponder and double flustering my own Ponder for 9 damage. That was pretty cool too. So that's the thing. In this tournament, because it was full proxy, there actually was very little difference between live and MTGO meta. And I'll show you the breakdown because Raphael actually put the breakdown on the Discord today. So I posted that earlier on Twitter. Actually, I can do that right now while we're going through the thing. So this was the breakdown from the 64 player event. Proxy paper. 5 shops, but like it was like Smelting Vat and Prison and 1 aggro. Only 5 Bazaar, so mostly Hogak, but there was Squee, Jeskai, and then tons of Breach, and then a bunch of different Tinker decks. So this is actually like very close to online meta. I would say like this is obviously less Hogak than online. 1 Jewel, 1 Vat, cool. But yeah, so like basically actually pretty similar to online, I would say. So I actually don't think I got a huge advantage from my like my go wide deck here. But I expect for Eternal Weekend in paper there to be a ton of Bazaar, a ton of shops, probably a ton of mono white initiative and different aggro oriented decks. People like the cost to entry for the cards you need to play Vintage is very high. And so if you already own Bazaars or Shops, then like you're very likely to continue playing Bazaars or Shops. So anyways, then I had to have a rematch versus Magni on the Death Ray, not the Death Ray Shaman, the Dragon Rage Channeler Breach. And that matchup is tough. I actually played that. I lost to myself. I mean, I obviously got crushed by the deck as well, but I haven't done this in a while, but I killed myself with Storm. I had a Karn locked, so my opponent basically can't win through Karn lock, but I wanted the game to end so I could go to game 3. So I started doing some POs on my turn, and I had probed their hand, so I knew every card but the one card they top decked. And the card they had top decked was Brain Freeze, and I built a Storm count for my opponent and got Brain Freezed. Which is, obviously a lesson that you learn once, but in my case, it's been a long time since I learned that lesson, and I had to, unfortunately, relearn it in round 3 of this tournament. So, a rough loss, but, a good lesson, and actually a lesson that would help me out in round 5, where the same situation happened, and I did not get myself killed by Brain Freeze in that matchup. Let's see what happened. It was then I just played against Tinker Breach. Or sorry, maybe these might have both been Tinker Breach. I can't really remember. But it was 2 Tinker decks, and I was pretty happy with those matchups. Like, I think if my opponent is playing Saga, I'm just favored. Like, I don't have to waste any time or deck slots on Sagas. If they're investing mana into constructs, you're just doing much more powerful things. So I felt pretty good about those matches. I'm not saying that they were blowout matches because it's still a Tinker Mirror, but they were pretty reasonable matches. And then I actually lost to a really cool Luris Painter Breach deck in the 6th and final round. That deck was really hard to board against. So I think there's a list somewhere. I saw it on Twitter. But what it is it's like 4 Painter, 2 Grindstone. It's Urza Saga, but it's in a Luris control shell. So like Flusterstorms, Pyroblasts, like lots of blue cards and cantrips and that kind of stuff. Yeah, there was 2 of them. I think that was it one of the English guys? Or both of the English guys? I think so. Yes. That's it. Francis. And I was pretty impressed with the deck. I thought the deck looked pretty cool. I think I could probably find the list online somewhere, but it was a really interesting shell. It runs pretty close to like a Tinker Breach deck. I would say it's pretty close to a Tinker Breach deck. It feels pretty similar, but you have different combinations, and it actually has a lot of colorless combos in it, right? So it's got Vault Key, Time Vault Key, Saga, but it also has Painter, Grindstone, and all the combination of those cards are all colorless. So, not getting hit by Pyroblast, not getting hit by Flusterstorm, which actually puts a lot of pressure on these kind of decks, even any kind of Tinker decks, because a lot of the Tinker interaction is Flusters and Pyros. But it was really cool. So I got my butt kind of kicked there. I think the games were pretty close, but it was really interesting. I think I misboarded a little bit trying to figure out like what was the best interaction suite. Should I board in Swords to Plowshares against 4 Painters and a Luris? Is that really what I want to be doing? It was tough. It was tough, and that's the kind of thing you get to do when you're playing a little bit of a rogue deck, a little bit of a homebrew. You get a little bit of tournament equity in the unknown, which is cool. So like I said, I think that if I was to like replay against this field, there's no shot I would be playing Hercules or Sphinx in the main. But I just miscalculated that. I just forgot that, it's full proxy. So why would it be like a paper event? It should be more like an online event. So, and then, like I said, I played badly in both of these first 2 losses. 100% my fault, not the deck's fault, which is magic, I was actually really happy with myself in this tournament that I was able to come back and get some wins and end up with a nice 3-3 record, because sometimes when I get early losses, I have not the best mental. So that was actually pretty happy. I was pretty happy with this day, and actually was able to, right after this round, I was able to play the finals of the team trios and win that. So it was pretty cool. So that is that and that. And then on you had the list. Let's look at the list. It's cool. It's a really cool list, so I'd like to look at it. Let me just copy this into Notepad real quick. So this is the, let me just copy this into Magic Online, is what I should have said. File, save as, blah, 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 blah. Import. Desktop. Boom, vintage. Okay, so this is the Luris Painter Breach deck. Ooh, 3 needle. I like that. I like that a lot. It's a cool list. So there's the Considers. That was throwing me off a lot. That was throwing me off quite a bit. But very interesting. 3 Saga, Petal, but no Emerald. So you can see it's like much more like Cantrip Breach style deck. Like we're not going, there's no Mana Crypt. There's no Sensei's Top. Actually, there is no Vault Key, which I guess makes sense because you don't need Vault Key if you have Grindstone, right? Interesting. I like the splash for Vamp and Demonic. That makes perfect sense. I'm not a huge fan of Consider, but I guess if you're gonna play 4 Pyroblast, 3 Flusterstorm, 2 Lightning Bolt, then Consider starts to make some more sense. God, how did I even have a chance of beating this deck? 4 Pyroblast, 3 Flusterstorm, 5 Forces. Okay, all right. Oof. But it's a cool deck. I thought this was pretty fun to play against. It was nice to have a little bit of there wasn't that many. I didn't get to play against many rogue brews running around, so that was pretty cool. And so then on Sunday, I played Legacy, which I probably haven't played more than 10 matches of Legacy in the last like 3 years or something. Like I just don't play very much Legacy. So I was able to borrow Mono Red Painter from my roommate for the weekend, Tom Decker. And this is just Callum's showcase list from a couple weeks ago. I had very low expectations going into this tournament. I was just gonna play, and as long as I was having fun, I would just keep playing. And so I got very little sleep, and we started playing this Mono Red Painter deck. And I was very lucky. My round 1 opponent no-showed. And then round 2, I played a really cool like back and forth match with a 4-color control deck. And then after round 2, I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun. I'm down. And then at that point, I realized I didn't know how to sideboard. So Callum hooked me up with a nice deck guide. And I was able to read up a little bit about the deck and what I was supposed to be doing. And I actually just had to strap in for a really crazy tournament. It was 480 players, so it was 10 rounds of Swiss. I can't even remember the last time I played 10 rounds in a row. Probably maybe in an online Eternal weekend. Maybe it was 10 rounds, but I think those were 9 rounders. Anyways, we had 10 rounds of Swiss, so got to play against 4-color cards I'd never seen before. That deck was wild. My opponent had like a Stoneforge Mystic and an Ice Fang Coatl and like 6 different duels. It had the Comet, the pup, which was just have you seen this card? Comet, pup, MTG. This one. My opponent cast this card against me, and I, to be honest, knew about this card, but I had never read this card because there's too much text on it. There's just absolutely too much text on this card, so I'd never read it. So now I had to read it. Playing against my opponent, I absolutely have to read it. And this, if you roll a 6, you get loyalty and you get to activate it twice more. So my opponent, of course, casts this card and resolves it and immediately rolls a 6. And my god, it went up to like 7 on turn 1, and it just did like 10 things and easily destroyed me. It was brutal. Game 3 happened, and I just turn 1 Blood Moon with Pyroblast back up to, you know, powerful wizard cheese my way to victory. Then I played against Delver, which was, it seemed fine, honestly. The matchup seemed like there was like a lot of counterplay to it. It was a lot, I had a lot of fun. I actually made a really bad mistake in this game. My opponent was at 3 life, and I had a lightning bolt, and I targeted the Dragon Rage channeler because I just forgot they were at 3 life. It was really weird because the very next turn I you know, attacked for 1 with my welder and channeled the Swing Shot Sniper to kill my opponent, and they were like, "Why did you bolt the thing?" I was like, "Oh, my bad. I'm just really bad at this game." Never punished at all. Then we played against Naya Maverick. I think that's what you call it. I don't really know. I thought they might have like Dark Depths combo, but I never saw Dark Depths combo, and it was just like value green cards. So like my opponent Green Sun for an Eternal Witness to bring back Path to Exile, which I was just like, okay, yeah, you got me. In game 2 of this match, my opponent played a Titania, which like makes the 5/3 elementals, and I actually was able to answer that. But the problem was the next turn they cast Green Sun Zenith for 4, and they got a Questing Beast, which none of my creatures were large enough to block, and I was at 3. So I just got domed by a Questing Beast and died. That was quite a match. I did end up winning that match again, but I was just like, why am I getting Questing Beasted? It was super crazy. Then I had a feature match on camera. I played against one of the people who made top 8. I believe it was like an Italian player on Delver. I thought they played extremely well. I basically just got like run out of cards both matches. They blew up all my stuff and then killed me with card advantage. I don't really know if there was like, I look back and I did watch that match, but I felt like I took the lines that I wanted to. I actually, in game 1, had it to a point where I had a Saga going, and if my Saga goes off, I get to Soul Guide Lantern their yard and they can't Murktide me. But they actually topped a Murktide with Dragon Rage Channeler the turn before my Saga went off. So I died to it like an 8/8 Murktide or something. Then I played against one of the Wooded team members who was on a really, really cool mono black deck. Let's see if I can pull that deck up too. I think Lorenzo has it posted. Someone has it posted. Let me just pull it up real quick. I think I want to show you that list because that list was super cool. I think this actually Lorenzo was my bug opponent. I should say that too from that other round. They work together on this really cool. They have like this one of the Italian teams mono black deck, which was just really, really interesting. It's kind of, you know, the Leyline Helm deck, but it's got a lot of other things going on with a pile of opposition agents and Dothy Voidwalkers and Plague, and it's just a really, really, I had no idea what was happening. I was just like, I assume you have Leyline Helm and Karn, and besides that, I assume they had like Dark Rituals and Hymn to Turok, but I had no idea what the rest of this deck entailed, and it was quite the battle. That was really fun because I just didn't know what was going to happen. The turn before my opponent died, they actually hit Karn Ensnaring Bridge, which was going to make the game go really crazy. But they lost focus for a little bit, and they didn't get enough cards under the bridge. So I actually had like blind named a Needle on Helm, and that I actually had to end up winning the game with that. But I don't know. I mean, I just thought the deck was super cool, and the match was really fun. That whole team, they're all like super competent and nice players too, which is really fun. So I beat Mono Black, and then I got to play against Doomsday, and boy, let me tell you, Doomsday and Legacy is very different from Doomsday and Vintage. My gosh, that deck is so much slower. And you have to just do so much more to make it work. When I guess when you lose Black Lotus, Ancestral, and Gush, yeah, that really does make a hell of a difference. But I was playing against Doomsday, and they went turn one. No, they went turn two Doomsday, and I was like, mountain go, mountain go. No, that can't be right because I bolted. Yeah. Turn two, they Doomsdayed. I bolted and it went mountain go, and my hand is just double Pyroblast, and my opponent and if I get to go to my next turn, I also have play Grindstone, activate Grindstone. So my opponent went like kind of probably a too aggressive pile. They went all in on a Thassa's Oracle, and I just Pyroblasted it and won the game. And then game two, I like Magus them and had a Thorn out, and it felt really nice to be on a winning side of a Doomsday matchup, because I think this deck was just like super crazy. I guess I should have shown this deck when I started talking about this, but did I do that? Yeah, no, I did do that. All right, it's over here. Yeah, but like you're on 7 Pyroblasts, and then post board you're on like Mindbreak Traps and Magus and Thorn, and it's just I felt kind of bad because it was real rough for the Doomsday player. So that was a W. Then I played against Delver, and I think my opponent was just like not feeling very well because they had to go to the bathroom at the beginning of the match for like 15 minutes. And we ended up playing a pretty slow match where they actually I think they boarded out Murktide or something weird. Because game two, they went down to like 10 cards in library when they won. And I was like kind of worried that match because I was playing super fast, and that's why we actually went to a game three. But if I had played like at a normal speed, we might not have even finished game two. It was like one of those frustrating paper matches where like you really need your opponent to play faster, but it's like really hard to get the opponent to play faster. And like the judge was sitting there the whole match. So it was like, I think I'm just supposed to say, judge, like, it's really hard to be like, judge, do your job. Judge, ask my opponent to play faster for it. Like, the judge is already there. So it's like just kind of an awkward situation. And I'm not really like there to like be, I don't know how to explain it, but I do think like my opponent was probably not feeling very well. And so like, it's rough, but so this game went to game three with very little time left, and I misplayed though. I set up like a very early Painter kill, but I think I was supposed to name Painter on blue instead of Painter on white, because I didn't actually have to worry about force at that point. I had to worry about removal. And so I should have named blue so I could have my Pyroblast turned on. Instead, I like pyroed expressive iteration or something. And they like ponder, shuffled, and hit bolt on the last possible turn. So that game ended up being a draw. Unfortunate, but I'm still pretty happy being 7-1-1 here. All I need to really do is win 2 more matches. So it's not a huge deal. This round, what was that? D. Starts with D. Played against my opponent, who was someone who watched the stream. Really awesome player. It was a really fun match. They noticed I was paired down and said they would concede to me, but we were gonna play the match anyways. I ended up winning like a pretty fun 2 games to win that match anyways. But it was super cool because it was what was it? It was 4-color control, and in the beginning of the game, he cantrips and misses on the second land drop. And so I go for a Painter kill, but he has the endurance. So I Painter, put the whole deck in the yard, and then endurance puts the whole deck back into the library. And then top decks Swords to Plowshares and gets out of it alive, which was the craziest thing I'd seen all day. And so we play like another 10, 15 turns of back and forth, and I ended up winning the game by hard casting a Fury and attacking with it. It was just a really fun match. It was a really cool match. That was just a fun round. So that was 7-1-1. And so now I'm going into round 10, And me, I'm assuming, okay, if I win, I'm 8-1-1. I'm in top 8. I'm locked for top 8. So I'm playing a feature match versus one of the Spanish team members, 8 cast player, very very nice guy. It was a really cool match. So we ended up going play a feature match on camera, and it was just super super fun, super super well played game. Holy moly! Oh, thank you, Demonic Tutors. Hope you had a good stream. We're just chilling tonight. I just got back from Italy playing in 4Seasons. We're just recapping some of the tournaments that we played. And we're going to, at the end of this, talk about Vintage and Legacy metagames going into Eternal Weekend this weekend. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, feel free to stick around. If not, I'm sure there are people who are definitely playing Magic on Twitch tonight who would love to see you guys in other chats. So thank you for the raid. And I'm just going to keep going through. Basically, we're on the 3rd tournament of the 4Seasons events, and we're on round 10 of 10 in this 500-ish player legacy event. So I'm playing on camera, and I actually think it's really cool. If let's see, where is that? I have that link saved somewhere. Anyways, round 10, game 1 of that was maybe the single best match of Magic I played, or game of Magic I played all weekend. It was like this really close game where the 8-cast player went for like early constructs. So it was like a 7/7 constructs, 2 7/7 constructs. And their first saga got Needle on Grindstone. And so basically I need to live long enough and be able to tutor for a painter so that I can painter blue, pyro the Grindstone, and then pyro the Needle and Grindstone combo them, but somehow I need to survive these 2 7/7 constructs. And so in that game, it's like perfect amount and timing where get a Goblin Engineer in play, and normally I would have to like make a Saga token and chump with the Engineer and the Saga token, but the card that I have in my hand is this Soken Crucible of Defiance, and I have never used this ability once in my entire life. Maybe in a draft once. I'm not really sure. But I actually got to use a Lotus Petal, tap the 4 mana, get the 2 1/1s to block the 2 constructs to save myself from dying, untap, Saga gets Grindstone, Engineer turns a Great Furnace into a Painter, and then Lotus Petal the Pyroblast on the Needle that was naming Grindstone, and then Grindstone kill my opponent on the last possible turn, which was just like, it just felt like the most perfect game. Like everything went exactly as it had to go on the last possible moment, just like the smallest of margins. It was a really, really cool game. Game 2, I kept like a hand that was Soul Land, Painter, Grindstone, and then some red cards. And I was just like trying to go, turn 1 Painter, kill you, which maybe is like too greedy of a keep against 8-cast. I don't have enough like experience to be sure, but I went for it, and my opponent had Force for the first Painter, and then Needle for the Grindstone, and I never drew a red source and died. And then in game 3, I actually was on the play, so I had my own construct draw, where I was like turn 1 Engineer that has to be dealt with, so it gets dismembered, and then I'm like turn 2 and turn 3 making constructs. And unfortunately for my opponent, when I untapped and made a second construct and went for my Saga activation, or sorry, my Saga trigger, I should say, my opponent has the ability to, respond and make a construct of their own. But I said, Saga trigger, is this okay? And they said yes, and I said, this is okay? And he said yes, so I, searched my library, put a Needle in play, and at that point, you can't respond anymore, as there's no time between the Needle coming into play and and turning off the Saga. So unfortunately, they weren't able to make a Saga token, and that was probably just enough to squeeze me through and win that round. So I'm just celebrating. I'm super happy. I'm like, oh yeah, wow! I just went 8-1-1 with a deck I've never played before in a format that I don't play. I'm gonna make top 8. I'm so happy. And they start reading off the top 8 names, and it gets down to like the 7th place, and the 7th place name gets read, and it's still not me. And I was like, wait a second. I didn't even look. Like, am I on breakers actually? Am I not gonna get in? And so 8th place gets called in, and it is me. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And right after that, someone goes, Justin, go look at the breakers. And this is the final standings for this tournament. And poor Mateo. I sneak in at 8-1-1, top 8 breakers by 0.0, the third digit. 61.78 to 61.10. And so this is like a third digit breaker for like 900 euros or something crazy. And I was just like, oh my God, I am so lucky. And the reason it's so crazy is because I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Marco. The person I drew with in that earlier round, the person that I drew with actually won out as well. So the two of the people who were, X11, all won out. And so I don't know, like, if I don't know if who played amongst these players up here, if they all played or if some drew. But it was really, really crazy breakers at the end. And I got pretty lucky and ended up top 8ing this event, which was basically the best way it could go. Top 8 split. So pretty crazy. So I got the 3 events I played in. I had team trios where I went 8-1-1. Does that sound right? No, that can't be right. 6-1-1. No, it's got to be 9 rounds. So 7-1-1. Then I went 3-3 in Super Vintage, and then I went 8-1-1 in Legacy. And God, I just had so much fun. It was just such a great weekend. Got to meet so many people. Got to just enjoy. Italy's food is it's just so good. We went to like some really, really amazing restaurants. If you go on my Twitter, you can see all kinds of food pictures, because that was like kind of the thing. It was like play a bunch of Magic all day, meet a bunch of cool people, and then at night go and drink and get good food. I think my favorite food is still gonna be the one of the TOs is actually a restaurant owner, and this was just this was crazy good. So Mengucci, I saw Mengucci's table when I walked into the restaurant, and then I saw Mengucci had tweeted this. And so I was like, I don't know what this is. I'll just order it. And it's like it's mushrooms and pasta and pork belly. And I don't like mushrooms. But they were so good. I hate mushrooms. I don't order mushrooms on anything. I try not to order mushroom dishes, but these mushrooms were they were just so good. Yeah, so it was already like 10:30. And they had pre-distributed prizes. So like the prize payout was flat for top 8. And so the top seed won the invite and the trophy, and everybody else split the money. So I would have liked to play for the trophy, but I understand, when it's 10:30 in the venue, the tournament organizers got to get out of there and conclude the tournament. So it is what it is. Congratulations to the first place player, and I'll take my, basically I got the highest record I could probably get in top 8ing that event, and then first place in team trio. So like just a really good event Magic wise, and an even better event, people wise. I got to meet so many people during the weekend. Tons of people who were like, thank you for making the YouTube content, because I stream pretty after work in US time, which is really late for Europeans. So a lot of the Europeans don't get to catch the streams, but they always get to be able to catch the YouTube VODs, which is awesome. It means I'm doing something right in terms of YouTube. I think I'm really happy about how that's all progressed in the last year. I'm definitely going to continue doing that. So, where does that leave us? That's the end of 4Seasons, and this weekend, tomorrow, I go down to Philadelphia to play Eternal Weekend in the States. Paper Vintage, no proxy. So this is going to be, the true test of this deck building style. I might make some tweaks to my list, but it will be probably very similar to this list. I'm not going to hide it. Like, if you play against me, you're already probably likely to put me on PO anyways. I'm not going to worry about like hiding my deck or anything. I'm very likely to play something similar to my 4Seasons list in Philly, and I think it should be even better than it was in Italy, because I just expect people to play the cards they have. So I expect workshop players. I expect bazaar players. I expect people who don't have power, who are playing, stompy style decks. No proxies means you have to play with the cards that you have, and not everybody has access to all of the cards. It's really, really tough. Paper Vintage, no proxy only happens once a year, and for a good reason. It's really hard to have a large tournament with all, power decks. So I think that I'm really excited to have Lavinia in my deck. I'll be pretty excited to have Sphinx in my main for this tournament. And I'm definitely going to be happy to have access to things like Swords and Balance from the board. I was really, really surprised when I saw the latest data from last weekend. I want to shout out to, what is it, P7? Ven? Wait, hold on. Wait. Eric did Sunday's data, and P7 did Saturday's data, and I was so surprised when I saw the data from last weekend. If I do, what do I want to do? I do like 12 to 22. This is last weekend's data. The most played deck online, Jeskai. The second most played deck online, Mono White Initiative. And so I actually think that this Mono White deck might see some serious play in the Eternal Weekend event. I know it's kind of a last minute, deck that appeared on the scene, but Mono White and different stompy hate bear style decks, you typically see a lot of them at these paper events, because they're decks that are typically within reach. Even if like you don't have power, you can play things like Spirit Guides, Chrome Moxes, the significant Mox Diamonds, cards that are downgrades, but you can still make it work. The Mono White list that got second in Eternal Weekend Asia was half powered, no Lotus, no Sapphire, no Jet, but was able to borrow a couple of the other Moxen. And I kind of expect to see similar decks appear in paper. I expect to see Hogax. I expect to see shops decks, not even just prison shops. I expect to see aggro shops as well. Even aggro shops basically doesn't exist online, but people are pretty, they like their shops decks, so they're gonna play it if they have it. And I'm really scared about Jeskai. Honestly, I'm really, really frightened about Jeskai. That's one of the matchups I really just don't want to play with my style of deck. These Pyroblast counterspell value decks that are going to, exchange forces and pyros for your cards and then outdraw you are really matchups you don't want to see when you play PO. So I don't know if this this Jeskai resurgence has kind of been happening pretty last minute, but I can only assume that people who enjoy that style of gameplay are going to latch onto it, whether that be the Luris deck with Wastelands or the... one of the Japanese players was even just playing no Luris, just playing typical, classic Jeskai. I guess we're all just going back to 2019 now. We're just playing Esper PO with no sagas. We're playing Breach with no sagas. We're playing Jeskai with no Luris, Crazy. So yeah, I'm expecting Eternal Weekend to be pretty fun. Right now, what is the stats right now? How many players are going to currently be playing in this event? Let's go take a quick peek. There are currently 135 players enrolled in North American Vintage Championship. I expect that number to go higher. I think it kind of depends, because I would say that Jeskai has like a bad dredge matchup traditionally, but is Jeskai as bad against Hogak? I'm not sure. Hogak is a deck that gets answered by like Tabernacle plus Swords, right? And the deck does have Wastelands now, and right now 300 players for Legacy. So I do think these numbers will both shoot up. I think 134. I'm thinking it'll be more like 200 players for Vintage, maybe 500 players for Legacy. We'll have to see. But I do expect a lot of Hogak, and I probably some more Dredge than normal. But I could be wrong. Like I just don't know. It's really hard to tell what the once a year paper event where no proxies are allowed, what the metagame is going to be. There's just no data to go by. All you can do is think about, what was the 2019 like? What did 2019 show? How different was paper from Magic Online in 2019? And that's so long ago. It's really hard to tell. We'll have to see. I do plan on taking the MTG Melee results and putting them into one of our spreadsheet formats so that we can actually see the and compare what the online metagame looked like to the paper sanctioned paper metagame. I don't think there's like a lot of value in bringing, actually, like, I don't want to merge the data, but I do want to be able to look at the data and see, because I did figure out that the Asian Eternal weekend was pretty close. It almost looked pretty much like an online metagame. But I don't know if that's just because, there's just so few of the actual cards that, maybe there's just like not a lot of bazaars or shops inside of Japan. Like that's like an actual possibility due to this severe lack of cards. Here's the paper Eternal weekend Asia. But if you look at this, that's actually still a pretty good amount of shops. 11% shops, 20% bazaar. 20% bazaar is pretty high. 38% combo. Like this is pretty similar to online, right? Am I right? Let me look at this. Let's compare this to online. So I could be wrong. I could be over engineering my deck to beat a metagame that might not exist. So if I were to do the last 90 days on Magic Online and compare it to, what do I do? Can I go like Windows right? Ah, yes, beautiful. So 12% shops, 12% shops, 18% bazaar, 19% bazaar, 20% combo, 22% combo, 25% combo, 10, 12, 15, 16, 14. Like this is pretty close, actually. It's really surprising. But I don't know. I just don't know if North America will be the same way. It'll be really interesting to find out. I did release my weekly metagame recommendation to the patrons. I'll just say that I think that the decks that you see performing well are probably the decks that I recommend. Like, I would say if we look at last 45 days on Magic Online, 45 is not what I'm looking for. 190 days was what I was at before. I think if you want to play shops, you should play Prison Shops. If you want to play Bazaar, you should play Hogak. If you want to play combo, you should play Doomsday or Breach or Pio. And if you want to play a fair deck, I like Jeskai or 4-color Deathray Shaman. I think it's pretty straightforward. Like those decks, not only do the data show that they're doing well, I think in my personal experience, I've been pretty happy against them. I do think that I was really impressed with Mark's first place victory with Esper Tinker. I like that list. Let's pull up that list actually. That's in the Discord somewhere. Let me pull that up. That's in Paper Vintage. I thought that list is how I would like to build If I had to play an Urza Saga deck, I would play Blue-Black Shieldred, or I would play Esper. And here's Mark Togash. Did I say that right? Esper Tinker list. Let's actually, I want to see what this looks like on Magic Online. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on Magic Online just so we can see what it looks like. I thought this list was pretty interesting. What is going on? That's not the right folder. Aha, found it. So this was the list that won Super Vintage at 4Seasons. And it reminds me a lot of the Dom Harvey lists that used to be played a couple months back. I like 16 land for Saga. I like that. If I had to play Saga, I'd want to have a bit higher land count. These Spell Pierces are pretty interesting. I'm not sure if I like Spell Pierce online, but if I were to play a somewhat controlling deck in paper, Spell Pierce is really nice because it's actually good against workshops, where Flusterstorm is not good against workshops, obviously. So kind of an interesting take. Tons of Teferis and Lavinias. Very interesting deck. But if I had to play one of this kind of style deck, I like this one, and I like the Shieldred lists. I don't know who made the last Shieldred list. Where was that? That would be Blue Tinker, and that would be not that one. That is not the one I'm looking for. That's Esper. Can't even find one. Because all the blue-black Tinker lists are listed as Esper because they all have Sphinx in them. Something like this. I like Opposition Agent as the Opposition Agent and Shieldred are really nice Saga Mirror Breakers in my mind. I always just been, whenever you can get Shieldred in play, it's been super impressive. So I definitely would never register Days Undoing, but besides that, like I think these kind of lists are pretty strong as well. Did anyone use 30th anniversary proxies in Italy? No, but somebody did print out 30th anniversary art and use that as the proxy though, which is, you know, fairly humorous. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up this section here. Maybe do question and answer. Anyone have any more questions about Vintage before Eternal Weekend, metagame considerations, stuff like that? Like I said, I wasn't going to play any Magic on stream today, but I wanted to talk about the event and give an update to people. And I'd post that on YouTube tomorrow, probably, just so people have something to watch. Yeah, so any questions about Vintage, I'll just field them now. Or even about 4Seasons, because I highly recommend anyone who can go to 4Seasons, go. There's going to be another event in a couple months. March, maybe? March 3, 4, 5. So. Yeah. Doesn't look like it. All right. So I will be off to 4Seasons tomorrow, up down to Philly. I'm going to play Friday, Vintage main event, Saturday, Legacy main event, and then depending on if I'm in Legacy Day 2, if it exists, or Top 8 of Vintage, I may play the online Eternal Weekend. It's at 4 a.m., but I have a laptop, so I might try. It's going to be pretty crazy. If you are playing online Eternal Weekend and you are available to help do replays, please contact me. I will give you links. I will give you a how-to guide. I need as many people as possible to do replays for Eternal Weekend. Normally, I do a pretty big heavy lifting for those large events. My computer doesn't die memory leaking as much as most people's computers. And we're going to need as many people as we can get to try to get those events data from the Vintage Eternal Weekend online event. So please contact me if you are interested in playing and helping do replays after. Hope everyone enjoyed that, and I will see you for the next video.